Hey everybody, welcome in. It's me, Punky Dumplin, Aaron, whatever you want to call me. And we're going to talk about deadlines today. But before we get into the not fun part of the talk, we're going to discuss the piece itself a little bit. This is part of the monthly myth challenge that is run by another streamer. Her name is DeadOnStudios. Fantastic streamer, phenomenal artist. I definitely recommend you give her a follow. She streams on Twitch. She also has a YouTube. I will link them in the description below. I definitely recommend you guys give her a follow if you haven't already. So, she started a thing a few months back called the Monthly Myth Challenge. And every month, we vote between 3 different myths from around the world, and we have a month to do a piece that relates to that particular myth. And normally I do these pieces strictly on stream because it's a stream incentive kind of thing, but because I ran into trouble with the deadline, I had to not do the piece I was planning to record for this week and just record me trying to finish this piece out before the deadline. And in my only defense, I really thought I had more time on this than I did. I thought it was due almost a full week before after it was actually due. So when I found out when it was actually due, I had already gotten myself into a heap of trouble with the amount of detail and work I was trying to put into one singular piece. But with that, we're going to lead into deadlines. And I will say right now, I struggle a lot with deadlines. Deadlines are stressful. Deadlines give me panic attacks. But they're a part of the business. If you are going to do art professionally, you have to learn to have a healthy relationship with deadlines. And it's special. But one thing I will say is here I have a few tips for how to try and manage deadlines better. And this piece in particular is just a show of proof that I am saying do as I say, not as I do, because every tip that I am about to give is something that I absolutely 100% ignored for this piece. So, ways I've tried to manage deadlines, especially when I have a hard deadline on something, are things along these lines. Now, for this one, I did do thumbnails, and I will say doing thumbnails of the piece help in terms of getting everything all set up early on in the early stages of the piece. Doing thumbnails helps make that particular process so much faster. If you're doing, little thumbnails to make sure you've got the composition right, you're not going to sit there and fuss with it as much later on. So I will say definitely thumbnail. Do lots of thumbnails. And sometimes it'll be within the first 2 or 3 thumbnails you do that you find the composition that you want, which is fantastic. It's not usually my experience, but it's one of those things. Once you get into the habit of doing thumbnails, especially for larger pieces, you're going to find that once you're actually in the, knee deep into the piece, it'll go a lot faster. I also recommend that if the deadline is short, you need to work on simplifying the piece. You need to, if, say, like this piece I had to have done in 10 days. If I had done this smart, I would have limited what I was doing. I would have picked a different style to do this because digital painting takes me forever. And I decided to do digital painting for this one. I would have, if I had thought things through, I wouldn't have done such a complicated background. I wouldn't have had multiple characters in this piece. I would have simplified it a lot. And when it comes to, if you have short deadlines, you need to simplify. That way you can put out the best work possible in the amount of time that you have. Also, when you are looking at deadlines or even considering taking on something with a deadline, you need to know your schedule. You need to know what it is you have on your plate, what it is you are doing outside of your projects, what it is you're doing outside of any kind of artistic endeavor, or, any endeavor that entails with deadlines. Know your plan, know your schedule, know your routines, and make sure that you pay attention to how that fits into your life. With this piece, like I said, I did not do that. And I ended up 2 nights before it was due opening up the file and having a full-blown panic attack because I only had 2 days to get more than 50% of this piece done. And I lost a lot of sleep, and that is not healthy. Don't lose sleep. If at all possible, do not push yourself to a deadline if you are going to end up losing sleep, harming yourself in any way, shape, or form. And that means it doesn't mean like, oh, I'm having a meltdown or anything like that. It's, I haven't eaten in 10 hours because I'm too busy trying to get this piece done. I haven't slept in 2 days because I'm trying to get this piece done. That is inextricably harming you when you do stuff like that. So I always recommend, like, I have a whiteboard on my wall that shows all of the projects that I am currently working on and which ones have a deadline, which ones don't, and most of mine don't at the moment, which I'm very glad for. But you have to pay attention to that stuff in order to make sure if you have something that is going to have a deadline, you can schedule in when you're going to be working on it. And, with the knowing your schedule, take stock of the projects you are already on. If you are already overloaded on projects, it may not be the best idea for you to start working on something entirely brand new. I made this mistake with this piece. As I said, I had an entirely different piece that I was working on rendering that I was going to have recorded for this week's video, but it didn't happen because I had to take every ounce of time I had to try and finish this piece for the deadline. And the biggest thing to take away from working with the deadline is knowing when to call it good enough. And I'm sure you'll notice in this particular video, I do a lot of jumping around into different areas of the piece. And what I was trying to do with that was I was trying to make more parts of the piece look finished so that when I could say it was quote unquote done, it was done enough that it didn't look incomplete. You know what I mean? And that is incredibly difficult to do. And as I said, I'm lost out on a lot of sleep over the last 2 days trying to get this done. And it kind of sucks. And I will also say when it comes to, putting yourself into these positions with these deadlines, and I do this to myself constantly, which is why I'm talking about it. And I also say, do as I say, don't do as I do. Because if you do as I do, you're going to be miserable like me. And I don't want that for anybody. So it's not easy to call something good enough, especially if it's a piece you're particularly passionate about. And like this piece here, I love Mothman, and I was so excited when that was what we got to pick for this month's monthly myth, and I was super excited, and I was, I'm really passionate about this piece, and I think if I put, another, I would say 2 to 3 hours in it, it would look fucking phenomenal. But I didn't have that kind of time, and I have things to do outside of art. And so unfortunately, when it comes down to the nuts and bolts of things, I have priorities, and this piece wasn't my number one priority, and I had to let go of things I wanted to finish with it. And it sucks. Especially if you are somebody who is a perfectionist with how you do your work. I particularly really thrive on, doing fine detail work, which is goddamn ridiculous. Again, I did this piece in 10 days. And that's just insane, especially for me. I am an incredibly slow artist, so doing something that quick is just not usually in my wheelhouse. But it sucks, and it will feel like you're not reaching your full potential. But a person who meets their deadlines is far more valuable in the artistic world than somebody who does a badass piece. If it's a piece that you could have done better, but it's finished and it's ready by the deadline, you're going to be a lot more successful as an artist, and you're also going to be a lot more successful as a freelance artist on top of that. As I said, I struggle with deadlines a lot, but I'm also a live-in nanny full-time. I don't have a lot of time when it comes to doing artwork and stuff like that. So when I go and do these ultra detailed pieces and think I'm going to get them done in 10 days, I'm obviously, I'm full of hubris at this point, let me tell you. But it's okay to have something be good enough. And one thing I will say is, like, what I was doing in this particular piece, when it comes to making it still look finished, even though it's not as finished as you want it, I tried to jump around to make sure that everything was at a similar rendering rate. That way, when you look at the piece, it doesn't look like, like, I think the most notable exception for me on this one is Mothman's wing that is closer to the camera. That one is a bit less rendered than the wing next to it, but for the most part, I tried to keep everything at a similar rendering rate. So that way, it looks like it matches. So it looks like the piece is finished, if you catch my drift. So, that's one of those things. And just so you know, it's okay if you get caught up in a deadline hole. It happens to the best of us. It happens to everybody at least once. It happens to me almost every time I have a deadline. And I don't wish that on my worst enemy. But it's okay. And it's also okay that you feel like you didn't do everything you could have done in a piece. It sucks to call something good enough, but as I said, in the long run, being able to call it so that you can have stuff done and maybe sleep tonight, that's far more important. So that's all I have to say about that. If you guys want to follow me on here, like, subscribe, yada yada yada, you know the deal. Going ahead, if you want to come say hi to me on Twitch, I stream there currently Thursday through Sunday. The schedule will be changing up a little bit, but I've got to work with my schedule on that. But Thursdays through Sundays, I'm on Twitch. If you want to see what I have for sale up on Etsy, the link is down there, down below also. Or you can follow me on Instagram, Twitter, all the fun stuff. I don't really post on Twitter, but if you want to see all the bullshit I retweet, it's on there. But anyway, that'll be it for me, you guys. I hope you have a great day. And just remember, we'll get through this, and you got this. Deadlines suck, but you got this. All right, everybody. Bye.